budget committee. We don't have to do anything official, do we? Just go into it?
It's just a workshop.
Do a pledge, right? Yeah.
Should be good.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll open up our joint Selectmen's and Budget Committee meeting, the town of Ambroscotta, January 9th, 2022. Sorry? Yeah. Can everybody remotely hear us? See some heads nodding. So, okay. All right. Yeah, thank you. So, all righty. We've got to copy the agenda.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So do we want to go through and introduce who's who on the budget committee and how we going with this one? I don't remember.
I'm Bruce Rockwood on the Budget Committee.
Hi, I'm Karen O'Brien. I'm the Budget Committee. Wow.
Shari Sage, Budget Committee.
Hi, I'm Dan Hunter. This is my first budget committee, so thank you for having me.
Max Johnstone, Budget Committee.
Kathy Heidel, Budget Committee.
I guess we're doing introductions. I'm Dick McLean with the Budget Committee.
And I'm Cheryl Pinkham, the treasurer.
Are they aware they're muted?
I don't think they are.
I'll go run out and point that out to them. Hold on.
Well, I'd hope they can hear us right now.
Yeah, Matt, you're muted.
The budget or the town office is muted. They can't hear us.
Well, we can
Thank
have our
goodness.
own meeting right now, I suppose.
Thank goodness, Cheryl.
As the Budget Committee.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We're supposed to elect our officers. That's the next item on the Budget Committee agenda.
Yeah, the next item we'll have the budget committee,
Oh, they're unmuted.
your officers. Yep.
Can they hear us?
We can hear you.
Okay.
I'll nominate Dick McLean to be chairman of the Budget Committee.
Who did that?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And then Dick, do you want to do the election for the vice chair?
Yeah, I don't recall who the previous vice chair was, but we need a nomination for vice chair.
I think it was Karen before.
Karen, that all right with you?
You mean Kathy?
No, I mean Karen O'Brien.
Have a nomination. Do you have a second on that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Looks like it's Karen. Yeah. Yeah, Karen's over and she's on the tablet. Yeah, yeah. We can see them all. You guys moving around there. So, all right. We want to go through the review of the budget calendar at this point. Matt, do we have a copy of the budget calendar out or you didn't print them off?
I had printed it, but I don't,
Okay.
it's not here. I had sent it out earlier. The board approved it.
Yeah.
Does anyone on the budget committee have any concerns with that calendar?
Let me ask, because everybody on the Budget Committee had a chance to see that calendar. And do those dates work for you? Anybody have an objection to the dates that are there? And hearing none. Karen, did you have a question? You're muted. Can't hear you.
unmute. Can you hear me?
Heck of an echo, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you have a
that's-
question about the calendar? And
She's gone. I think she had her phone or something on too. All right, we'll give her a minute, Nick, see if she's got a question.
yeah,
I turning off my phone to see if I get less of an echo. I
Yeah.
had two things on.
That was it, Karen. Yeah, we can hear you much better now, Karen. Yeah.
sounds good. Did you have a
Oh,
question
good.
about the
Okay.
calendar?
No,
No.
thank you.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm fine with it.
All right, then let us assume that the calendar as submitted is okay with the budget committee.
I don't think there's any concerns with the board or
No,
from the
we
town,
can,
Matt.
and we'll be flexible if anything changes. We can amend that.
All right, we can move on, review of the budget format. Do we have anything to review there?
Cheryl, would you go through that? What we had in place last year, especially for the newer members.
We use the same Excel spreadsheet. Most of you are familiar with it. We've used it
shouldn't be.
for about 15 years. Dan, I can send you a separate, just so you're familiar with it. I'll send you just one single page so you can see how it's going to flow. And I'll get your email from Matt later. But it's just an Excel spreadsheet. It's pretty basic, pretty self-explanatory. All the single line items that we vote on for each department all have comments. So hopefully just reading the book, there isn't going to be room for a lot of questions because we do try to get as many comments as we can into the budget.
So which years do we have on there, or what years will we have for actual expense?
For the actual expenses, whoops, let me move my. We'll have 19, 20, and 21 actual, the 22 budget, the 22 year to date, and the 23 request.
Okay, and then a few years ago, as Cheryl mentioned, she and I told the department heads that they needed to explain as much as they could in that little box where it says remarks. And I think that helped the budget committee and the selectmen quite
Yeah.
a bit, and it helped us move through the budget a lot quicker. So the department heads have been good about that. Cheryl and I will both be taking a look at those when they're submitted, when those budgets are submitted, to make sure that there's adequate explanation there. That's certainly doesn't mean that the board members and the committee members can't ask for more information, but we try to give you as much as we can up front. All right, and then I wanted to talk about this list that I sent you all a week or so ago. Yeah, exactly a week ago, on projected expenses. We normally go into the budget process thinking we can keep things fairly level, but I've become increasingly concerned as some of these increases have come in. I think Lou's our representative on the budget committee, but if I remember the Lincoln County News article on it, it was 8.9% increase or something close to that.
Right.
We don't know yet, though, how much of that will be the assessed, or maybe it'll be more, the assessed amount to each of the towns. So we have a budget of about 500,000 now as our assessment, our county assessment. So if that's 10%, there's 50,000. So I just want you to brace for that. The transfer station, I think Mark went to the meeting on that. I think it's they're pretty good about holding the budget tight. And 1 year, in the last 2-3 years, we didn't have an increase at all. They just simply tapped into their reserves. Now they've approved a 4.84% increase. I don't know if that's later on the agenda for the board to approve the contract with that, but it does come up now. or I did want to mention it now. Salary. Yeah.
I think in fact that hasn't gone up for a few years, has it?
I think it went up. I think it's gone up every year except 2 years ago.
Minimally.
Not much. Again,
Pretty small, small amounts.
Dick Spear in particular is pretty tight guy when it comes to the community's budgets. Yeah, and we of course, we in Bremen and Newcastle pay more than Jefferson and Noblesboro because they run the transfer station. So that's built into the cost factors. Employee salaries, Cheryl and I haven't worked on that yet, but I think you've all seen the inflation figures according to the CPI, specifically the CPI Urban Index. So we'll have to see what happens there, and we'll give you our recommendations with the budget. Last year, I think at both the Selectmen budget meetings and I know at the budget committee meetings, the groups asked for the fire chief to provide the cost of a health insurance benefit, and I think specifically a cancer benefit. So I reminded the chief about that, and he'll be putting that together. I don't know what that'll be. I think you're all aware of the ambulance service contributions needing to increase mainly because of their need to adjust salaries to be more competitive with other agencies. So that's going up a significant amount from last year. Public Works, we've talked about at my workshop with the board, putting in some increases in the budget request for expanding the Public Works Department. This is one area where we've been particularly low. And this year we only had one full-time person working and then a part-time individual for part of the season. And we really need to address that because we're very dependent on that one individual. So Hugh has given me a preliminary budget request, and I'll be taking a close look at that. And again, I hope we can phase in some increases over a 2 to 3 year period. The bond issue, which will be the subject, assuming that the board approves the town meeting warrant, the special town meeting warrant tonight, and that is approved at the special town meeting on February 16th. That'll go up. That'll increase the current debt service line item by $70,000. We need to do a property revaluation. It's been more than a decade since that's been done, maybe closer to 15 years, and that will be funded. I've asked our assessing services contract person to give us a quote on that. We've already set aside some money in capital reserves, but we'll need to set aside some more. Those revaluations are very expensive. We had a new provider agency, at least one that we're aware of at this point, request $7,500. You'll be, the board will be negotiating with a new town manager candidate for his compensation package or her compensation package in the coming months. So that's still up in the air. LCTV has requested a $5,000 increase over their current contribution. We do receive funds from the franchise agreement payment, but those have gone into our general fund over the past years. So the net result would be an increase of the general fund for those dollars for LCTV. And you'll hear from Larry and maybe Jeff, you know, when you meet with him, or meet with them. And then we did have an increase for LCTV because of Jeff's works and Larry's work as part of cable casting these meetings and putting them on YouTube. We're going to have a full season of restroom costs. And then based on the preliminary information that Cheryl's received from Maine Municipal Association, there will be an increase in workers' compensation and employee health insurance costs. So I just want to review those. Anyone have any questions? Again, we'll be talking about those as we go through the line items, but I think it's important that you have the heads up on those increases. We've been able to keep the mill rate relatively low for a service center community over the last 4 or 5 years. So I hope we'll be able to continue to do that, but you see there are some pressures for an increased budget.
Matt, this is Dick. I have a more general question. Prices on everything are going up virtually daily for everybody and every place. Do you have any thoughts about from the time we finally start approving each line item until the reality of getting into next year, about more contingencies than we're accustomed to, or just any thoughts about that whole problem?
I haven't given any thoughts about it, but it's a really good point that that we should address as we get into the line items. We have $23,000 in our budget now for contingency. And, you know, if we're trying to brace for those increases, those inflationary increases that you're referring to, Dick, you may want to increase that amount. So, yeah, that is something to take into account.
You know, I know it's virtually 6 months from now before we have the reality of it. But 6 months ago, we didn't think this would be happening.
That's
And,
right.
Yeah, good point,
yeah,
Dick. Thank
I
you.
just think in terms of then finally suddenly finding ourselves sometime in the next fiscal year, having to be looking at a special town meeting to okay just some of that stuff. So yeah, I'd like to plan to have that conversation when we get to that.
And can I ask, are there any American Rescue Plan funds coming from the state to the town that can be used to set aside for some of these expenses?
What was the question, Bruce?
The American Rescue Plan, the
Oh.
federal funds to the states to the towns.
They have to be specifically allocated. Right, yeah.
Do we have any that can be allocated to any of these contingencies, such as the ambulance pay raises because of health concerns and so forth?
Well, I think I can answer that pretty directly, Bruce. The rules that came down with that act and that funding announcement from the Department of Treasury says specifically that those funds cannot be used to reduce taxes. So
But they might be used to increase expenditures that aren't related to reducing taxes, I would think. That's how you interpret it.
Yeah, related directly to COVID.
Yeah.
So
We should look into that. That's all I'm saying.
We have a list that I sent out with the Board of Selectmen's agenda packet because it's part of the special town meeting warrant to approve the selectmen's allocation or recommendations with regard to those expenditures. And you'll see the major item on there being the improvements along Miles Street. And the logic we use for that is that those improvements will protect the access that people have to healthcare and specifically COVID care and treatment and the vaccine themselves. So that's the logic that we used for that, in addition to some stormwater allocations that are available. So that's the majority of the town's ARPA money. It's about 180,000 for that, and then out of the total of 227,000. So I think, although I wouldn't highlight this for the Treasury Department, but I think one could look at that and say, yeah, that may reduce some future capital reserve expenses. So, or allow us to use capital reserve monies for something else. So I think that's as close as we can come to reducing the burden on taxpayers. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah. Yeah, they said they have some pretty stringent
They do.
rules on how we
And they did
allocate it.
they did send out a final rule, I think a week ago, which actually loosened up the requirements a little bit. And, we were looking at the stormwater in particular. So, and there were a few other items where they gave us a little more flexibility, but it's still pretty tight on where those funds can be used. And they definitely want the majority of the funding to be used for COVID-related issues.
Thank you, Matt. Let's see. So are we good? Any questions on expenditures or increases? Or is there any good news, Matt? No decreases anywhere.
Let's see. No, I'm not aware of any
I'm being
decreases.
hopeful. But,
Yeah.
How about any projected revenue increases?
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, excellent point. So
get a star for that one.
the state legislature has agreed in the last two sessions, basically, to increase the revenue sharing, to move it back toward the 5% that was approved, I think 43 years ago in a referendum. So that's really good news. We're going from, it was at 2.5%. I think this year we're at 3.5 or 3.75, and then ultimately we'll go back to the 5%. So that's a couple $100,000. That's really good news.
That's some good news.
It's been into effect, it was a stepped increase. And so that'll be in effect for the coming year again. And I'll send you all the increments, the percentages, and the dollar amount that's projected for Damascotta.
Matt,
But that is good news.
another question, section or whatever has always had different names. I don't know if it's Local Road Assistance Program now, LRAP. Have they ever talked about increasing that reimbursement to the?
No, they've told us not to expect an increase for the next year. It's running about $21,000. And the reason we get that is the town does some maintenance, including snow removal on the state aid roads. So the theory is that the state reimburses us part of the cost, but they really don't come close
really
to
do
doing
much.
that. Yeah.
I figured
Fix
it
them out.
would be nice to see if they could, all the costs that are going up for snow plowing and treating and
Yeah.
everything, for the town's cost. They may want to consider trying to raise that up as well.
I think years ago that they used to have the town spend it on paving of roads. That was one of the
So
requirements.
that's true. So what they do is they send us a form every year for us to fill out. And like that 21,000, we have to show that we spent that money on one of, it's like 11 or 12 categories. And that's not an issue. I mean, we spend far more than that on our paving program and our the various, debt service counts, setting money aside in capital reserve counts. So it's really a perfunctory process that I go through to tell them what we spent that, roughly 21,000 on. So yes, the law says that it has to be public works related, but it's not difficult to justify that.
We used to get
Yeah.
twice that.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, is this decreased over the years?
Yes,
Has it?
decreased
Yeah,
over the years.
yeah.
Yeah, and I can share with you the form that I fill out every
Yeah.
year.
Huh.
And then the other positive news is that last year, the legislature voted to adhere to their own law, their own state law with regard to the 55% subsidy for schools. So between the two schools, the school committees, two school committees have the latitude of using somewhere around 220,000, as I recall. It's 157,000 for GSB, and I think it's 70 some odd thousand for Lincoln Academy. So they have the opportunity to use that money to reduce the tax bill, to reduce what they request. But they could also put it in reserves. They could also, if they could justify it, put it towards certain expenditures. So I've asked them to let me know. I've asked the superintendent to let me know as soon as the committees, the relative school committees, decide what they're going to do. I think since the town, I'll put in my plug, since the town directly funds the school district, it makes sense for that to be a credit on the taxpayer expense.
Yeah.
So, we're waiting to see what they decide. I haven't heard anything recently. I'll send them another email to see if they've made a decision on that. But those are a couple of positives there.
There was some good news mixed in there.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that, our assessed valuation increases with the amount of construction that's taken place, particularly in the residential areas during the past year.
But that's not likely to have effect next year, is it? I mean.
Well,
it'll have.
I'm sorry, it'll have an impact it won't have an impact on what the budget request and the final approved budget is, but it'll have an impact on the mill rate. It'll be
Right,
the
but
increase.
that won't be effective until the following year, will it?
Whatever the increase is
April
on
1st.
April 1st compared with the previous April 1st, will have an impact.
But it's not going to be done by April 1st.
Yeah, he's asking when
Oh,
we
no.
looking at doing these
So-
reval?
So what happens is, there's two different things. We need to do a total revaluation of the whole town.
Right.
And that's not been done for 15 years.
Right.
But as there are new permits issued for
Okay.
improvements to properties and new properties, those get added into the town's valuation.
All right.
And that happens
So
every April.
There's some
1st.
year-to-year growth there.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, but it'll be a while before we get the whole reval.
Right.
done.
Yeah, and we're not going to want to increase taxes overnight because we have higher valuation.
Hmm.
We'll
Right.
we'll hopefully be reducing our mill rate at that same time.
Okay.
So,
Matt,
yes.
what currently is our situation with the ratio between our tax evaluations and actual sales? Are there enough sales that we even know?
The state requires that we be within 10%.
Mhm.
And I haven't gotten, and they do an audit, 10% above or below, so 90 to 110%. I mean, the last time we were audited, and Cheryl might know more. You still, yeah, you're still in there. Cheryl might know more on this, but we were very close to 100%. But that could easily change here very quickly. We'll see what Rob, our assessor, has to say about that.
But currently, our need to do a reassessment is based on time elapsed, not a charge from the state. Then,
Well, it's the time elapsed, and they like to see a revaluation every 10 years, but they don't enforce that. So, and we try to stay up as
We
we,
try to keep up with Yeah,
Pardon.
so we've been trying to keep up with it.
Yeah, we keep up with it when the house sells. You know, there's typically an adjustment then. And again, you know, any modifications that we see through permits. So, I mean, we try to stay fairly close, but it doesn't compare with doing a total revaluation.
Thank you, Matt. Dick, does your committee have any other concerns on or expectations on the budget going forward? Anything you want to discuss this evening?
Not on my mind, but certainly open that up to everybody else. I would raise the question, forgive me if I'm wrong. Dan, is this your first year sitting with us?
This is my first meeting even, first year, first meeting. So, yeah.
Okay. I might, if the board of Selectmen would just give me a moment. Dan being the new fellow, just some basis. The town charter requires this group to exist, and our function is to, as far as the people in general are concerned, is to look over the shoulder of the governing body, to make sure that they don't run amok. And we live in a town where that is not the case. Our finances are well managed and controlled as much as the world will let them control. So sometimes for members of the budget committee, it gets a little frustrating when you don't feel that you're making changes, radical changes. If you have a concern or an idea about something that might be an improvement over the way the money is spent, now before we start voting on the budget items is the time to address that. And I would ask that you begin such an address directly through Matt. The right to know laws forbid all of us from communicating or meeting back and forth without the public knowing it ahead of time. But you can certainly address your questions to Matt. Otherwise, basically what's going to happen is we are going to meet separately from the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen will talk to the department heads and get their questions answered, and come to some conclusions whether or not they recommend the numbers that are coming from Matt and the department heads. We will do the same thing independently. And so at the town meeting, each of those line items will appear with the bottom line, and it will indicate that the selectmen recommend X amount and that we recommend X amount. More often than not, we agree. Every now and then we don't agree, and the voters get to see both numbers, and at the town meeting get the chance to ask, how come? Why did we disagree? And then we can, both bodies can explain what our concerns are. And from that point forward, then the voters choose a number, one of those two numbers or a different number entirely, and vote on that number. We'll meet with the department heads and get all of our questions answered. And among other things, it's really a good opportunity to get to see how the town runs on a more minute basis than most citizens get to see. So sometimes the first year is more of a learning process about these numbers. But again, we don't mean to exclude you from having an opportunity to make suggestions and recommendations as to how the money is spent. So any questions that you have at this point walking into this?
Yeah, actually just a couple. So every time we meet, it's the public needs to be invited, or at least to be present.
They have the right to know what we're talking about.
So if I just wanted a little primer on the budget process, I shouldn't talk to you alone. I should go to Matt.
Yeah, direct it to Matt, and Matt will communicate with the rest of us. His emails are public.
Yeah.
All right. As to concerns or questions, Matt, am I addressing that correctly?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay, and that just prevents you and me from meeting over drinks someplace and agreeing to do something, with behind closed doors. We can't, we don't want anything to appear that we're having discussions that the public doesn't know about.
Okay.
And
So
emails are a part of that. Emails between us, amongst us as a group, are considered a meeting.
Okay. Okay. Is it fair to say that I found that list of possible budget increases from Matt really helpful, just as a starting point. But everything else, in a typical year, do we mostly just say this is the budget and then and it's sort of whatever it was last year plus a certain amount? Is that typically how the budget's put together, as opposed to like starting from a zero-based budget?
That's right. We
I'll
have,
let Matt answer that, but my feeling is no, for the most part, each of those numbers is constructed each year. Each department head submits to Matt their request for how much they want to spend on everything that they do, line by line. Matt argues and debates, and they go out and have fistfights over it until they come to some agreement. And then basically it's Matt that is then submitting to us a request for that. But if I understood your question correctly, no, we don't simply take last year's number and increase it by a percentage across the board. Each dollar that is requested has to be justified, first to Matt, and then to the Board of Selectmen and us, and then to the public in general. Does that answer the question for you?
Yeah, it does. It just I'm getting a clearer sense that Matt has an incredibly important role here in the center of all of this. And
yeah, he does some things around.
Yeah.
I've seen him in the office on occasion.
Yeah.
Karen?
Just wanted to see if the proposed budget is still on schedule for February 24th. And to tell Cheryl, I do have a folder.
Yeah.
Cheryl has to answer that, right?
Yep, as long as all the department heads submitted, I've emailed everybody their sheets today. So they're supposed to be due back to Matt on the 27th. And then from there, once Matt approves it, I need about a week's time to turn it around and get it into the computer and get the comments and everything copied and pasted over, and we should be good to go.
Thank you.
And I've got last year's binder. Just give me the printouts and I'll stick them in the binder.
Okay,
I was
perfect.
about to say, would it be better if we take our binders, bring them over, and then you can just reuse them, or?
Sure.
You can do that.
Do that.
Yeah, I can
And
read.
that's how frugal we are. We reuse the binders year to year. So
Yep. See, there's positive news. Now the budget's going down.
thank you, Dick.
I got
Sherry-
one. I have one
Sherry's had a question this whole time.
Max?
Well, no, I was going to say Sherry's had a question.
Oh,
I can't tell. Yeah, go ahead, Sherry. Yeah.
It's a question and another comment. I do believe it was good news, actually, and not last year, might have been 2, maybe 3 years ago, over at the transfer station. We had done so well on selling compost that it actually lowered our fees. And I would just like to maybe refresh our enthusiasm to the residents here that compost is available there, and it does benefit Lincoln County if we still keep that energy up for that. And that's correct though, right? We're still selling compost there?
yes.
Yes, okay. So not to let that go, I don't know why, like $8,000 is ringing a bell for our share, but don't quote me on that. So, and then the other thing in all the notes that we've been given, I'm a little puzzled. Why is there some funding for the tiny house from the Stepping Stones complex? Why are they receiving some funds?
We're talking about the ARPA funds.
I believe so, yes. It's somewhere around $15,000. I can't find it in my printouts anywhere, but
16.
It's 16,400.
okay.
And so we had a public hearing on the use of the ARPA funds in August.
How
And
did I miss that?
yeah, and then the board considered the requests, and then based on the criteria that we've been given by the Department of Treasury, the decision was made to make that allocation. So they asked for 35,000 plus total, and the board agreed to provide 16,400. And that has to go to town meeting if it's approved on the town warrant tonight, and that'll go to the town meeting on February 16.
And how did they come to qualify for it?
They are qualified for it.
I know,
yes.
but how? I mean, what guidelines did they meet that qualified them for it?
They qualify under the ARPA, the housing support for unhoused
Right,
persons
it's,
category, one of the categories.
Specific title is funds for unhoused individuals and families.
Unhoused. Okay.
I'll say, I can speak for the board and for you, Shari, that we advertised, asked for input, and they were, well, probably the only organization that came in and asked and had stuff, you know, they had a good reason for asking for it, and the board felt that it was a worthy act to put some money into it. So they were one of the only ones that approached. So yeah, and having a timeline on this, we couldn't keep it open forever. So yeah.
Okay, if there's any links or specifically targeted emails that I might have missed, if you could send them my way, that would be great. And it's definitely seems to be on my part that I completely did not notice this in August, which is odd for me, but
It would have
okay.
been, Matt, you would have been in your agenda for the public
On the
hearings.
agenda
Yeah, and it
for
would have been in
first
the,
time?
Yeah,
it would have been
was all-
a public notice as well in Lincoln
Okay.
County News. But I think you're on our full packet mailing list, aren't you, Shari?
I am. That's why I'm puzzled that I
Yeah,
it
the-
completely went under my
The
radar.
title of the document that went out last weekend was Board of Selectmen's proposed use of ARPA funds.
Oh, no, that I got, which is
Okay.
why I'm understanding
Oh, I see.
now.
Okay.
But it was like how I missed it in
How did
August.
it get there in the first place?
yeah, you're asking
Yeah.
about the hearing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, how I missed that part. But all right, thank you.
Thanks, Shari. Any business from the board or at this point?
I have
Max has a question.
one more question.
Go ahead, Josh. Yeah.
This is a question for Cheryl and Matt. I know we tried to get the audit done before a budget cycle. How are we coming to get that on track?
I'm going to let Cheryl take that one.
They're working on it right now. I'm 3 weeks behind. I was in the office by myself for 2 solid weeks. So between me being out of the loop for 2 solid weeks, not being able to work with them, then they were on shutdown for another couple of weeks. So Kevin, the guy I work with RHR, is looking to get it finalized by next week, or he's looking to get the draft to us by next week.
So do you think, I've been meaning to ask Cheryl this question too, because we've been going crazy here at the office, but do you think we'd be able to get a presentation by the auditor at the February 2nd?
I doubt it. That's 2 weeks away. We don't even have a draft. Why would we bring it to the board for a presentation when we haven't had a draft yet? And like I said, that's in 2 weeks. So next week, we're going to work together. I've also got the W-2s and the 1099s to get out, and that's going to be next week. And then from there will be audit stuff.
We'll be lucky if we can get anything in March.
Yeah, I'd like to see, us have it, all the information that we can use to see where we stand.
As soon as we have a draft, we'll send it to you. We won't wait till a presentation.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, get it quick as you can. Yeah. Oh, all right.
Max, do you have a question?
Very minor item. It says here in the possible increases, 5,000 increase for LCTV and then 4,100 for LCTV services. Does that mean the 4,100 is in the 5,000, or is it 5,000 plus an additional 4,100?
Oh, it's two different line items.
Okay.
The contribution to LCTV is for their community broadcasting. And then we, starting earlier this year, the board agreed to pay them for Jeff's services here at the meeting. So to cable cast this and use YouTube.
Yeah. And we're paying that out of contingency right now. So we're looking at putting it as a line item.
All right. Just curious.
Max. Any else from the board at this point?
I have
Lou?
one suggestion. Dan is a new member. I'm sure there's a lot of us he does not know. So I would suggest that we all introduce ourselves.
It's a good idea, Lou, and I missed that at the beginning, didn't I?
Yes.
We'll start with you.
I would suggest we take our mask off momentarily. Yes. I'm Lou Abertoni. I am one of the selectmen. Dan, I think you worked at the same bank my son does.
Oh, Todd.
Yes.
Oh, Todd, your son. Oh,
Yes.
oh, Todd's great.
He gave me a great recommendation of your abilities.
Oh, well, I'll try not to disappoint them. No, Todd's a great guy. So I didn't make that connection. So sorry about that. So
Thank you, Lou. Tom, go ahead.
Tom Anderson, Selectman.
Mark?
Mark Hager, Selectman.
Josh Pinkham, Selectman.
Darrell
Josh.
Frazier, Selectman. Nice to meet you, Dan.
nice to meet you as well.
Yep, and then the board members, also the budget committee members should introduce themselves.
All right.
We did introductions. We already did introductions.
Oh,
on the
we
board.
did?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
we did that first. I just didn't do us on this end.
Oh.
Yeah.
This feels like a club that knows each other quite well, and sort of like I've been a new member into a secret society. So thank you.
Special member into a very elite group.
Yeah.
Right.
Very.
So, well, thank you all. Is there any other business at this point, Matt, on our end?
No, I was just going to mention that Dan's jumped in with both feet. He's on our financial advisory committee and on the comprehensive plan committee. So
Well, thank you, Dan.
unless there are other items for us.
Okay, yeah, sorry, Karen, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I wanted to know if I could move to adjourn the budget committee. Do you need that or no?
You can move. Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Is there a second from the budget committee? To
I'll
adjourn?
second.
I got a couple. I see Max. Okay. Is there any more from the budget committee? Any questions or concerns before we adjourn? Well, then if it's okay with Matt,
Just a little
Wait.
curious. Do we have any special ed students that are going to be rolling over into the fiscal year?
Well, there are, I don't, we're not talking, well, a couple things on that. I think what you're referring to is a few years ago, we had a enormous bump up in special education
Correct.
costs, special needs. And I don't believe that is on the horizon, but the school committees did set aside some reserves. So it'll cushion the blow if we have that again here.
Okay, because I didn't mean necessarily the same student, just the same possible situation. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it won't, hopefully it won't be as huge, but of course there are quite a few special needs students that qualify under the special education budget. That's an ongoing budget cost.
I think we got reimbursed for that, right?
Oh, we do. We get reimbursed for that. I think it's 45%, but it takes 2 years. So it wallops us the first time, and then it takes a couple of years for the state to reimburse us. Yeah.
Okay.
Matt, with my having on the table here, having a motion to adjourn, are you done with us for the day?
I think we're good on the board end here. Yeah, Matt, we're good. Yep.
Okay, I'll have the official vote for us to adjourn. All in favor of the budget committee
Aye.
adjourning, and we're out of here.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, bye.
All right, so with that, we'll close Selectmen's and Budget Committee meeting.
How do I